There is this new trend of videos going around on YouTube on people leaving the UK and why they are leaving. Of course, everyone is free to search for and follow greener pastures wherever they can find it, but I think some of the whining and complaining are actually ungrateful and sounds like people are condemning the very reason they were attracted to the country in the first place. Allow me to explain. A lot of the complaints I hear boils down to the fact that everything is so expensive with so many bills to pay that you have to work very hard, and when you finally get paid, so much is docked from your pay in the name of tax that you barely have time for yourself due to too much work. And the latest complaint I heard in one of these videos is that the UK is designed to keep you as a middle income earner, and that it is impossible to rise from the bottom earners to the top 1% of the British society. Let's start with the everything is so expensive, because I'm so tired of hearing people complain of this. And just so we are clear, this has nothing to do with the current cost of living crisis which most countries are facing. These people are simply complaining that labor and services are expensive. I am from Nigeria, and I find it quite shameful that some people would rather replicate the cheap labor and service they get back in countries like Nigeria here in the UK. Imagine a situation where someone who works full-time in Nigeria is unable to afford even the transport fare to get to their place of work because the so-called salary they get at the end of the month cannot afford them that. Never mind other basic necessities of life which would be considered an unattainable luxury. Do you not know that this sort of evil is one of the main reasons why Nigeria is in such a mess, with everyone trying to find corrupt ways to make money? Don't get me wrong. I know that greed and corrupt politicians also play a major role in the state of affairs in the country, but the way people are very happy to take advantage of one another is mind-blowing. Imagine that you have an employee who works for you dawn till dusk, and some of these people even work weekends. You, the employer, know that the money they earn from you cannot afford them any sort of living, and yet you are not scared of how they are able to show up to work for you every single day. We have a minimum wage in Nigeria which cannot afford an individual a living. And I am not talking about trying to support a family on minimum wage, because that one is a different matter. I mean, the minimum wage is not able to afford a single, unmarried, child-free individual the most basic living. And yet, how many people pay this minimum wage to the employees? It always breaks my heart to see all these people who think they are so smart. You work in, say, an oil company and make a killing. Yet, you think it's okay to hire a bunch of domestic staff and pay them peanuts just because you think you can. I, for one, love the fact that labor is expensive here. If you want it done for you, you pay the price for it, and if not, you do it yourself. If you're complaining that you have to spend an arm and a leg to get services here, then perhaps a developed society is not for you, because it's only in underdeveloped countries that the government will fold their arms and watch people rip off those they are better off. For those who complain that the UK society is structured to keep you from getting to the top 1%, let me ask you this question. How many people do you know who reached the top 1% of a society by being employed? Because I actually do not know anyone. In every society, as far as I know, the top 1% are mostly thriving business owners. I watch a program called Rich House, Poor House. If you have not heard of this program or seen it before, I suggest you check it out. It's quite educative, and you can even find excerpts of it on YouTube. Those in the Rich House category fall under the top 10% of the British earners, and a number of them are people at the top of well-paying professions. Did you hear that? At the top of most professions, you can only dream to fall into the top 10%, and these people usually have a modest lifestyle. But they are equally considered wealthy in the British society. So, if you are looking to move to the top 1% of the UK society, then you better come up with a killer business idea, because I bet you tax cuts or paying less tax is not the way to get there. Everyone will simply have more money in their pockets, and we will be back to where we started. What I do know is that the society is not designed for greedy people. You can certainly live well on most income if you do not try to spend above your means and buy a bunch of stuffs you do not need. You also certainly will not be able to play God to all people back in your home country, because the society is designed for individuals to fend for themselves. In other words, everyone who is able to can work to provide for themselves, and if you are not able to work due to a genuine reason, the government has things in place to help you meet your needs. So if you have come out here hoping to carry 101 financial burden, then I understand how you will quickly become frustrated and resent the deductions on your earnings, even though these deductions has helped shape the country in a way that is way better than where you are coming from. For the 2022/2023 tax year, any income earned above £12,570 is taxed at 20%. Then as your income grows, your tax bracket also grows, and you could get taxed at 40% and even 41% in Scotland. The question I would like to ask all those complaining is, what is the alternative? Would you rather live in a country where you pay 20% irrespective of what you earn? Because I know that that is a recipe for poor wealth distribution. And how do you suppose the government is able to fund the free education and other amenities which both the rich and the poor are able to access? A lot of the people complaining are running to countries like the US and Canada, where people supposedly earn a lot more and seem to be a lot more wealthy. But understand this, just as you would make more there, you will also spend more. I mean, take a look at the healthcare system, for example. An illness can leave you penniless and completely broke. I know the NHS is far from perfect, and I will be the first person to point out how challenging it can be to access GP. But at least you can sleep easy knowing that you will not be left to your mercy should you really need treatment for a life-changing illness. If you're complaining about too much work, then perhaps you need to take a look at your working hours, because I also know that most people who always seem to be working all the time voluntarily take up jobs and shifts for more money. Maybe you could cut down on unnecessary spending and, most importantly, help people within your means. If you plan to live here for the long run, why not leave all these picking up hundreds of shifts and instead focus on improving yourself to get higher paying jobs? It might be very challenging in the beginning, but if you have a solid plan, you can definitely create a good life here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.